Hello, today is August 25th, 2009. We're meeting today with Edward Boyer at his home in Fort Collins, Colorado. My name is Brad Hoops. I'm the interviewer for the Northern Colorado Veterans History Project. Welcome, Ed, and thanks for sitting down to tell your story today.
Okay.
Let's start out, if we could. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your date of birth, where you were born, a little bit about your family.
I was born at, it said on the birth certificate, it says 8 miles northeast of Fort Collins on a farm. Right at the north end of Cherry Lake. You go east until the road goes down like that. And the house, well, there used to be a house on the top of the hill there, and they had the feed lot down below, and Dad was feeding cattle down there. And the doctor come out, and that's where I was born.
I'll be darned. Any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I had two, one brother and one sister.
And where were you in that?
Huh?
Where were you in the three?
I was the last one,
Last one?
the youngest one.
Okay. And what was your date of birth?
September the 18th, 1921.
So you got a birthday coming up, huh?
Yeah. I'll be 88.
Wow. So did you grow up then on the farm out there?
No, I don't know what happened, but that Dad got laid off or something, and we went to Loveland, and he worked in the sugar factory for a while there. And then we come back to Fort Collins and moved on Wood Street, and that's when he helped build a bridge up at on the Poudre Canyon, you know, where it comes in and makes a sharp curve and goes across and turns. He was working with the county for that there building bridge, and he said one guy fell off the bridge and died up there while he was working there.
Oh, wow.
And then Ed Monroe caught up with him, found him, and told him that he had a farm up by Buckeye, and he wanted us to move out there. So in 1929 we moved out there.
And is that where you grew up then?
I grew up. I started school out there.
Uh-huh.
I went through 8th grade through the grade school, the Buckeye School, and graduated from that. And then I started high school in Waverly. And you know, on December the 7th, that's when the VE Day.
Or the Japanese bombed.
You know, the Japanese done.
Do you remember where you were and what you were thinking when you heard about that?
Well, I was over at my cousin's place. He lived over north of Fort Collins, you know, where the cherry factory there.
Uh-huh.
He worked back in there by that lake there. He had a place there. And his son and I went to Denver to the park down there, and we went down there to the zoo or something and we went through that, and we come home and they heard about that, and I went on home, and then they told me that I had to go for a physical down to Denver on the 10th.
Well, now, you were still in high school, though, right?
Yeah, I was a sophomore. I just started as a sophomore.
I wonder, how come they made you go down for that physical?
They looked at me here, and they said, well, it says, your feet, says, again, says, I don't think they'll take you for that there. Says, but you go to Denver, and they'll check you out down there and see.
Now, on the 10th, did you go to enlist yourself? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I went down there and took the bus down. I asked him if I needed anything, and he said, no. He says, you'll be coming back home. So
Did your folks have to sign for you? Because you weren't 18 yet, were you?
So Dad brought me in, and I got the bus, went to Denver, and we went into the big room there, and I think there's a couple hundred guys in there. We sat around in there for quite a while. for about an hour or so, and they said, "Oh, you come on out, just get, they're going to take you over to the other place." So we thought we was going over to get the physical, you know. Only thing, they took us over to the railroad station, and they got us on a train, and we headed for Texas.
For Texas?
Yeah, that night I ended up in Fort Bliss, Texas.
So you never got a chance to come back home then?
No. And I got down there, and then I got to see the doctor down there on the next day, but it was too late then to send me back. So, but they give me shoes, you know, give me outfit and everything, and I told them I used the 8.5 D, you know, and they give me 11.5 double A. It's like putting overshoes on, you know, your feet. And I did some marching there for a couple of days, and then we went up to can't think of the name of it. It's up there by St. Louis.
Okay.
Right south of St. Louis, that I had there. And I was marching there and taking that thing there. My feet got hurting so bad I couldn't. I went to the doctor, and he said, what size shoe you got? And I said, 11.5 double E. And he said, why? I said, that's what they give me. He said my feet would have room in them. He said, well, they got plenty of room. He said, but so he gave me a slip of paper, and I went over to the supply, and they give me the 8.5 Ds, and I turned the others in, and I never had any trouble after that.
Is that right?
My feet all taped up, you know. And, it was terrible.
Oh boy.
And then I signed up for the Air Force.
Now, why did you decide to go to the Air Force instead of some of the other branches?
Well, I didn't want to march or just lay down the foxhole and shoot and things like that. So I thought, well, I'd get airplane mechanics. That'd be good. So we took a test, and I passed the test, so I got to go to Chinook Field, Illinois, to go to school up there. And I went to the school up there, and then graduation on there. If you got 95 on your test, they would keep you for instructor. And I took the test, and I didn't get 95. I got 90. And the guy says, I know you flunked it on purpose. Says, you didn't want to be that. I said, yeah. I says, I can't get up in front of a crowd like that. He said, well, I'll have to let you go. He says, but he said, you missed the easy ones, and the rest of the guys missed the hard ones. Says, the hard ones. Says, you know. And so they sent me up to Niagara Falls, where the Bel Air Cobra was, and I specialized on the Bel Air Cobra. It was an inline engine instead of a radial engine, and I was up there a little over a month, and then we shipped us back down to Augusta, Georgia, and all we did there is setting up in the barracks, and you go down and take a shower and dry up, and the time you got back up to your thing, you needed to use the towel again. I mean,
it was so humid there?
It was hot there. And we were there for, I don't know, a week or so. And then they shipped me over to Shreveport, Louisiana. And the sergeant there, he thought we was new recruits, so he put us out there, and we was marching, and the officer, the manager, you know, he traced all over, tried to find out where the mechanics were. and he found me. He said, "Lois, I thought I put on the desk there, in the book there." And he wasn't the first sergeant after that. I mean, but he took us in, and they, down in the, they put me on the B-26 to rebuild a carburetor on the B-26, and I rebuilt it. And he took it up, and they said, "Worked perfect." I said, "Okay." But I was, and then a couple of days later, they shipped me out to Tampa, Florida. And down there, they had the Bel Air Cobra. And I was working on, I was a crew chief on one plane. And this lieutenant, he redlined my airplane. Said the brakes wouldn't hold. And so I took and rebuilt the brakes, and he came back out next day and tried it again, and he took it, he said the brakes wouldn't hold. And then a little bit later, here come the, what do you call it, the officer in the main guy. He come out there, and I was just jacking. He says, "Forget that." Says, "I want you to start this thing up." And he said, "Get up in the cab there and start it up." I started it up. He hung on the side, and he said, "All right, I want you to taxi on out to the line out there." I said, "Okay." So I said, I never flew on these things. And he said, "Well, I don't care." He says, "Just taxi it on out there." So I taxied it on out there, and at the end of the runway, you know, and he said, "All right, set your brakes, and then I want you to rev it up to full speed." And I set the brakes, and I revved it up to full speed, and he was hanging on to me, on to try to keep from, and that plane is just bouncing a little bit, you know, like that. And he said, "Okay, shut her down." And I shut her down, and he says, "Release the brakes, and we'll take it back." He said, I think that guy's, he keeps red line. He doesn't want to fly. He says, I'm gonna take care of him." So then we went back in, and I was up for corporal. And they turned around, about a week later, they shipped me out to Sarasota, Florida. That's where they had Bel Air Cobras down there too. But they didn't need any mechanics. They said, "Stay there and said, keep this, he's sitting there by your mosquito netting." He says, "It keeps." There they had was tents. They had about 3 feet up off the ground. And they had the floor, and then the tent was up above it, you know, and you had to stare. So it was right in the swampland. When it rained, you had to wade over to the thing. And so we sat there in the tents there, and every day I'd go up and check in. And he says, "You can't," he says, "draw me a board, and I want you this big board, about a 3 by 4 feet, you know." He says, "I want you to put some lines in it like this, and then some up and down lines like this." He says, "I want enough room. Put the name of the pilot, the type of plane, the time he takes off, the time he returns, and then his name back on the end again." I said, "Okay." So I went and got some paint, you know, and I made the lines and like that. He took and looked at it. "Oh, that's beautiful, boy." He put it up, he nailed it up there, and he wrote on it it was kind of a chalk, like, so you could write on it with chalk, you know, and he'd write on it the name of the pilot, what plane he took, and what time he left, what time he come back, and that, there you go. And this one pilot come in, he says, you can't by any chance type too, can you? I said, yeah. I says, I was taking typing in school. I said, before they took me out. And he said, well, he's okay. He says, I want you to listen to this guy that's here and write it all down. Says, he tell you how he had the accident. So I said, okay. And I wrote it down. He told me he was flying, coming over low, and he said that there was a couple of 3 girls in the boat, and they waved at him, and he said, so he made the wings, to signal that he seen them, and he turned around to look forward, and it says there was water splashing in his windshield. And he crashed it, and I don't know whatever happened to him, but he didn't. But that's what he told me. And then after that, well, they told me, well, so we're changing your what do you call it thing, so instead of an airplane mechanic, we'll change it to a, what do you call it? Maybe a
Quartermaster?
No, yeah, quartermaster. It says put you in. You can when you get there. It says you can take care of the clothes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Issue it out there like that. So I said, okay. He said, and then he give me a 7-day furlough to go back home. That's the first time I've been. It's been over.
Were you in Florida at that time?
Huh?
Were you in Florida at that time?
Yeah.
Was that enough time to get back to Colorado?
Yeah.
7 days?
It took me 2 days to get up to Chicago, and then over. I got to Chicago, and I told this guy at the, what do you call it there, and I told him, I said, I wanted to get to Denver, and I said I got a 7-day furlough, and I says I took 2 days to get up here, and I says I want to at least get a day or two at home, and he said, well, I says, I put you on the Zephyr. He said, I got an empty space, and the guy come up there, and he offered him $1,000. He says, well, says keep your money. He says you can catch the next plane. He says you're not in a big hurry. He says the soldiers is on furlough, and he's only got a couple of days now. Says he wants to get home and just say, and instead of just saying hi and goodbye, and he wants to spend a day or two with him home. And so I got on the train, and next morning I was in Denver. I caught the bus on into Fort Collins. I called my dad up, and he come to town and picked me up. And I got to spend a couple of days at home, and then he took me back in. I caught the bus back and to Chicago, and then it took me another 2 days to get back to.
Wow.
I got back there, and my name was up to report. So I went up there to see it. He said, well, says you're shipping out. Says you're going up to. Going to ship you up to. What do you call it? New York. So I went up to New York, and there we drove. They took in a truck a bunch of us, and about 10 or 15 of us. We went over to this other area, and we took these cars, and that we took a convoy over to the docks, and then they took and waterproofed them and put them into boats and took them overseas for overseas thing. We did that a couple of days, and then my name come up to report to. I'm going to be shipped. I'm going down to Virginia, and says you're going to catch the boat. So we got on the train and went down to Virginia and got on the boat, and he said, well, says you're going to Africa.
Wow.
Oh, okay. Well, he didn't say that it was going to East Africa. We went down and stopped at Rio de Janeiro for unload some stuff there. We was there a couple hours, and then we pulled back out and went back way down around Cape Horn in Africa, up to Bombay, India,
Wow.
and dropped off some stuff there. And then we went over to Cairo.
Now, how long would a trip like that take?
45 days.
45
I didn't know there's that much ocean, boy.
days. Well, how was that? Here's a farm boy from landlocked Colorado on a ship. Did you get your sea legs, or were you seasick at all?
No, but it was weird. I never seen so much water. You never seen any land. I mean, all you can see is, as far as you can see, just nothing but water, you know.
What kind of ship was this? Like a cargo ship, or what kind of ship were you? A Liberty ship?
It was the SS Mariposa. It was a United States equivalent to the Queen Mary.
Oh, okay.
It was a luxury liner. They had these little rooms, you know, that most generally just maybe one or two people lived in it. We had 6 in there.
Wow.
Had 3 double-deck ones in there in the room, you know, and just the bathroom, and then we got to Cairo, and then they put us in the barracks there. I guess it's a barracks. It was it wasn't a hotel room or like that. It wasn't real fancy. But we got I got a trip to go to town, and this other kid, another kid there, and he said, "I'd like to go see the pyramids." And I said, "Me too." I said, "Let's go." And he said, "Okay, let's." So we took the bus to town, you know, and we found where you get the bus to the pyramids. We got on it and went on out to the pyramids, and we went through the pyramids and the Sphinx and everything. You wouldn't believe it. That we went to King Tut's room. That room up there is a little bit not quite as wide as this here, but same length. It's about 12 feet, but it's 16 feet. Then it had an 8 by 10 on the end of it, where they kept his jewelry in. But these big stones, marble, there's no steel or nothing like that. How they put them in there like that, stacked them up in blocks, you know. And to get in there, they had about a 4.5 foot wide and 4.5 foot tall. It's just a runway up to his deck. His wife was down below. You didn't get to go to hers in her room, and they put the 2x4s, would put cleats on it like that, and then they taped electric lights up to the room up there, you know, and we went up there like that, you know, practically crawled up it, you know, and got up to the top there and went in there, and here these big stones is about 8 foot square.
Wow.
That they stacked in there like that, you know, and the ceiling was the same thing. They put them in there like that, and they stacked. They had one on each side and like that. The 2 of them met in the middle like that, and it's up. I don't know. There must have been 10 foot on the ceilings or everything, and the floor the same way. Right in the middle, they had it was about a 3 by 7 foot. It was up 3 feet high. That's where they put the body at. But other than that, it was just a big room.
Wow, that must have been exciting to see for
it was a sight to see. And then
yeah.
they had this little doorway in it, and then you go into where they put his jewels at.
Huh.
And then we went into the Sphinx, and Well, you couldn't go into where the face was. It was down below. They had, well, it was where they had where the band. When you went into the other part of it, the body part, it put you in mind of a big dance hall. Looked like it was about 30 feet wide, and maybe almost 100 feet long, and up and about 25 or 30 feet high.
Huh.
Dome take like that, you know. And then the front where the face was, see, they had a stage up there, and that's where down below the face is where they had below the.
Wow.
And when we went back, well, we took the horse and carriage. 'Cause we took the bus going out there, and I tell you, these taxi drivers, they went through there about 35 mile an hour like this, and these others going crossways like that, they went through there. They never slowed down either, but they stayed back, I'd say maybe 100 feet apart like that. And this and here go through like this, and this and here go through like that, and they just alternate like that down through the main part of town, you know. You know, we took well, it's a trolley, you know, with had a seat there, and the place where the guy set up there drove the horses, and then had a seat across where there's enough for 2 or 3 people there. And there was a couple gals jumped up on the thing, oh no, and they told her no, we didn't want it. Okay. And we wasn't looking for that.
Yeah, right. How long were you stationed in Cairo?
And they're just about 3 or 4 days. And
Oh, okay.
I was, but the rest of them, they was there about a week. And then that next day, we had to go to the meeting, you know, and had a roll call, you know, on that. And does anybody know how to drive a car? And I put my hand up like that. And none of the others did it. He said, yeah, you can run the wheelbarrow. I said, well, no. I said, it'd be better than that. It was only 140 in the shade, and it wasn't a damn trade around. And he says, well, take this Jeep and tell me how to go there. There's so many blocks, you know. And he says, pick up this lieutenant and says, take him to where he wants to go. He knows how to get there. And I said, okay. So I just took and drove on over there and picked him up. And we drove on up to, well, it was like a school, sort of like a school, big building like a school room, you know. And then he told me to come in and sit in the back of the room there, right by the door there. And says it's a lot cooler inside there. And it was cool inside. It was like this right here now, in there. But outside it was 140 degrees.
Oh boy.
Oh, it was hotter than heck. And we got through, and I took him back home, and he said, I want you to pick me up tomorrow and go back again. And I said, okay. So I told him, he told me what time, and so the next day I went over and picked him up again and took him back and did the same thing, you know. And he said, he told me to come on in back there because he says it's a lot cooler than sitting out out there in the Jeep for an hour or so. It took about an hour, a little over an hour for their talking, you know. And the next day I went down there, and my name was up to report to the airport with the barracks bag.
Well, Ed, tell us what the meetings were about that you were going to, that you were sitting in on.
There was he was learning how to defuse the booby traps.
That's right. Yeah.
They told how to look for them, and says don't do like some of them did. The guys they went in, and they had these the Germans would lay a Luger or something like that on a table like that, or something like that, and you pick it up and the bomb goes off on it, and that's the last they did it. He said one of them, they did that there, and this guy, he took and put a string on that thing, and went out in this bomb crater, and he pulled it off, like that. He thought so it wouldn't go off there, but they had the bomb in the bomb crater.
Oh.
But
So when you sat in on these meetings, did you listen in and pick up some tips?
I listened to it, all of it,
Yeah.
but I never had to do it.
Yeah. So you said then the next day,
Next day, I had to catch the airplane. We flew on up to Tripoli, and when we landed there, got out of the airplane, and there was a German airplane burning on the side there, and the thing is still burning.
it had just crashed?
No, it's just somebody's shot it and then put some stuff on it, so it's burning. It was just burning. The body is burning.
Oh, okay.
And I said, "Ain't you gonna put that out?" He's always said it'll go out. Yeah. So we went down, got and ate. Went to the mess hall. I mean, it was a tent. You got your food and went outside and sit down.
Was it hot there in Tripoli as well as like Cairo?
No.
No.
This is. We went to. We took our bags over to the tent. They had tents around there.
Uh-huh.
With about 4 or 5 guys that sleep in a tent.
Well, what were weather conditions like there? Was it hot there?
Well, it wasn't as hot
Oh, okay.
there, and we went. He says, "Well," says, "you come back here." Says, "Tonight," says, "about 8 o'clock." Says, "You can look up north there," and says, "You see where the
Tracer?
huh?
The tracers?
Yeah, it's the airport. See, was south of Tripoli."
Uh-huh.
It says you can see the tracer bullets. Says like the Fourth of July. You can see the Americans and the Germans shooting at each other.
Wow.
So we sit out there, and to see the tracer bullets, a whole bunch of them going like that, and then we just quit shooting so much, and we quit and went to bed. Next morning, you went to the mess hall and get something to eat, He says, "Oh yeah," says, "throw your bag onto the truck here." He says, "You're going on into Tripoli." He says, "The Americans drove them out of there last night at midnight."
Wow.
So, I said, okay. So the next morning, we left there around 8 o'clock, and we got into Tripoli around 9. And we just, I don't know I can't remember what we did, just trying to get, we went over, they told us, I didn't know where the barracks was and anything was, so we was going to put in this one, out in this field there, it's real nice sandy, they thought it would be a good place to pitch your pup tent. You could take the sand and, in case it rained, and put the sand up and make it so the water wouldn't come in, And so we was out there digging and start digging. I was out there and I started digging down. I got it down about 3 or 4 inches, and I found some concrete. And I made it further, and once the concrete went down like that, So I dug down in here, and I had about a 2-foot hole there, and it's in diameter, and down about 4 or 5 inches, and I found another one, concrete. I called the sergeant over and I said, "What's this here?" He said, "I don't know." He cut some more, couple more guys come over and they got shovels and they got in there and dig it, and it was steps, and they got down to the bottom. There was a big door there, and they went in there and there was ammunition dump.
Oh, wow.
And I guess the Germans thought, well, they put the sand in there over the ammunition dump, and they come in at night, they could bomb it, and blow them up, because they knew that they wouldn't go into the buildings, the first day they're there, And so we went across he said, forget this here. He says, let's all go across the street over here. We got some tents over there we can stay in tonight. Find something to go downtown tomorrow. We went over there, and it started raining, and all at once here come a couple of airplanes, and they was strafing,
Uh-huh.
and they was strafing that place where we did thing there, and it was raining, and this one kid, he said, I ain't going out in the rain. There's hell. And a piece of shrapnel come through the tent, and boy, he come around out through there. It wasn't a doorway.
Wow, huh?
And he dove underneath the truck there. This other kid was huddled underneath the truck there, where it wouldn't hit you on top, and just down so you wouldn't get so wet. And this is like a puddle down underneath the truck there. He dove underneath the truck there, and we was kidding him about it. It looked like a motorboat. And there's one other kid on the other, a little bit over to on the other side, though, about 50 feet over or so, there was a basement they had dug to put a house in, I guess. And it had about 2 feet of water in there, from the rain and everything. And there was three guys in there, and they was standing in there and just looking out. This one guy dove on into there, and he was stuck in the mud. They had to pull him out of it, like that, and wash his face off and that thing there. And he said, why did you dive in? He said, why didn't you jump in like we did? He said, we knew couldn't be too deep, Next day we moved into town and got that, and then they took me, because I drove, so they put me on the driving, and we drove a couple of days there, and the rest of the outfit come up. They come on convoy up. It took them a week to come up on convoy. But one night, right after I got there, my name was up to guard on a ship, unloading the ship, and when I got on the truck and we got over to the dock there, and the sergeant, the guy that's driving the truck, called my name. He says, and I got on. He says, give me this rifle. And he says, here. Says, you walk the dock here. Says, to see if there's any, so there ain't nobody coming around. Says, if anybody comes around, and shoot them. So I said, okay. So he said, they took the rest of the truck over, and my name was on to guard on this unloading the ship, but he put me on the docks there. And then a couple hours later, here come I heard a roaring. What the heck? They had an air raid thing there, but somebody shut it off. Or something sabotaged it so it wouldn't make noise. And here come that plane over, and he dropped this bomb, and he pulled up like that. And he pulled up. Well, they the Canadian, what do you call it?
Anti-aircraft?
Aircraft. They shot anti-aircraft, and they shot him, and he landed in there. But I don't know how much is done to the damage done to the ship, but he dropped the bomb right on the ship.
So if you hadn't have been assigned to guard the dock, you would have been on that ship then, right?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I don't know. It's just my luck, I
Yeah.
guess.
Wow.
That they had a whole bunch of these niggers from South Africa. They couldn't understand English and that, you know. You couldn't understand the Arabs either, but
Yeah.
but they put me on that there, and then they driving a little bit. The rest of the company come up there, and they took over this big building for a garage, and it was about a 3-story building, and on one end of it they had rooms up there rent, you know, where we had to share a bathroom of about three or four rooms shared one bathroom, you know, and each one of us had a little room. It was a place you had your cot in there and your barracks bag, and that's about it. You didn't have any chairs. You just you sit on the side of your bed in your cot, you know. That's where all the drivers had up there, and we just go downstairs and into the room there. And that big thing, Jesus, it was almost a block square. But it had some on the bottom floor. Well, the back end of it was a garage, but I'd say about 50 feet of it in the front there was stores, you know, stuff like that. But there wasn't anything in it. I mean, just where the stores used to be. One of them they made the office for the drivers, you know, where you had to report for the thing. They got these two big Italian buses, 32 passenger buses. And it was right-hand drive, and of course they drove on the right-hand side of the road over there, you know.
Oh, jeez.
And these Italian buses, they were like the English, you know, out there. And they put me on one, and they put this other kid, they put him on one. And so we drove on out to the airport. We left at 7 o'clock in the morning and get back around 8, a little after 8. Oh, it was about close to 9 o'clock where you come back, you know. And then the next bus would take off at 10, and he'd be gone for 2 hours. He'd come back around, and then another, about an hour later, a third. The first one, he made a second run, and then about 4 o'clock, well, the last one he took off, and he got back about 6 o'clock. You know.
Was it hard driving on the wrong side of the road?
Well, it was at first, but you got used to it. I mean, and most of the times they'd pick up these guys. One of them would sit over there, and I could push over a little bit, and he'd tell me if there's somebody coming or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. But I come that one day there. I had to drive it around 60 to 70 miles an hour all the time because you had so much time to get. The airplane left at 8 o'clock in the morning. You had to get these officers that wanted to go back. You had to get them out there before 8 o'clock so they could get that. And they wanted a little bit more longer so they can get a cup of coffee, you know, sometimes they didn't want. You didn't get to leave town until about 7:30. You know, and boy, then you really had to go, and it's crooked like that. You
Oh
know.
boy.
To-
How was the local traffic? The locals, the Arabs and stuff. Was
Oh,
that
there
hard
wasn't
to?
much of that.
Oh, okay.
It was just well, you had the English and I don't know what others, all different other kinds of troops, you know, and stuff like that, going back and forth.
But I mean, as far as getting from downtown to the airport, did you have to deal with Arabs on horses and carts and
No,
that kind of stuff, or they
They
stay out?
didn't go on the oil road.
Oh, okay, okay.
The carts. They had some trucks that they and but they whenever they seen that bus coming, they would drive off on the road. The road there, you could. It was smooth, just same height as the dirt on the side there, but it was oil here, and painted line in the middle. You know, that's all. But you could drive off in that thing there, and you wouldn't even notice
Right.
like
Okay.
a
Yeah.
dip, you know. And it was flat there. Well, it's right on the Sahara Desert.
Yeah.
anyhow.
Yeah.
And
So how long were you in Tripoli then?
8 months.
8 months. Did you ever come on under German attack after that first time? Or was there any more German attacks, bombardments or anything?
No,
No.
Mm-mm. no, we didn't have any more. Well, we was drafted a couple of times, but that's all. I mean, but they didn't draft the town. They out edge of it, you know. But I had to drive that there every day. It was 100 miles. You put 100 miles a day on going back and forth to the airport. And then one day I brought this French officer in, and he forgot his bag on the plane. He had to, what do you call it? He had all of the payroll for the
Oh, geez.
whole company, you know. It was a big suitcase, you know, and he wanted somebody. He called in. He didn't think about it until he got into town, and then he called and they said that the plane landed in this other airfield. It was 75 miles away, and it was 75 miles east of Tripoli. And he said, "I want somebody to take me, I want to ride on out there." And I come in and just at 6 o'clock, you know, and my bus, you know, tucked it in the office. The lieutenant says, "I want you to take this guy going out to this place out there." I said, he says, "Take a Jeep." And I said, "I ain't gonna take a Jeep and go that far. 75 miles is, you can't see it very good anyhow with that thing." I said, "I'm not." I said, give me the general's car." He said, "Okay, so you can take the general's car, but be back here by midnight."
Oh, geez.
Okay. So we took off, and it was a station wagon. I can't remember whether it was a Ford or Chevy or what it was. It was a good car. It was a new one. It was a nice car. And I got out a little bit, and I couldn't see my headlights, you know. And I was going to scrape the paint off that thing there, and it didn't have paint on it. It had a metal thing. I took my knife and I cut it down, cut the strip down like that, and bent it down on each side. Got in, and I could see the road then a little bit. And we took off, and he said, "Well, they can see that there. The Germans, they can fly over and they can see that light. They can shoot at it." I said, "Well," says, "don't take the chance." And we took off, and we got up to about. He was yapping away there in French, and I couldn't understand it anymore. He said, he got up to 60, he quietened up. Got up to 70, and he never said a damn word, you know. He just sat there, you know. And I never been over that road before either. But at 50 mile an hour, like that, you know, he got up to 60, quiet, but got up to 70, it was just smooth, you know. And we got to the airport out there, and he went into the cave there. There was a cave right there, and the officers had a club in there, you know. And I got stuck out out there by the airfield in some sand, and finally got somebody with a jeep and pulled me out, you know. And got through there, got out, and I went on in there, and I told him, I said, "Let's go. We got to get going." You know, I said, "We got to get back. Got to be back by midnight." Okay, so we got back in the car, and away we were. And all at once, the lights on my dash lights come on red. And what the hell is this? And it was about 5 miles out of Tripoli. There was an army camp right alongside the road there, you know. And I pulled one up there, and I raised the hood up, and boy, the engine was cherry red.
Ooh.
I shut off the engine, you know, and put it in gear and let the clutch out, and then she finally killed the engine, you know. And I went down over to the guard hall there, and he said, what's this, you know, what do you call that thing?
Password?
Huh?
The password?
No, with your code, you know what. And I told him, I didn't know that. And I said, all I want is I said, I got the general's car here, and I said, I got to be back to town by midnight. And I said, I want to call the garage and tell them to come out and pull me in. He said, oh, okay. He gave me a telephone, and I called the garage, and they come on out with a Jeep and pulled me on in, and got in there, and he raised up the hood, and the fan belt broke, see.
Ah.
And he looked underneath the seat there, and there was a new fan belt. He said, well, I said, you could have put a new fan belt on. I said, yeah, but how in the hell would you do it without any tools? And he said, well, I said, yeah, I'm gonna. So he put the new fan belt on and filled it up with gas, and the general called up for his car. And here comes the general's driver, and he jumped in the car, and the way he took off, he never knew that even had. He didn't know I put 150 miles on the thing. And they never told him either. But yeah, they drove the Germans into that island south of
Sicily?
Italy.
Sicily?
Yeah. And then they drove them out of there and up the boot, you know. And they drove the Germans way up to the top land, you know, the boot. And then they says, all right, since you go back home, since you done your part.
Well, now, did you, when we invaded Sicily and Italy, did you go to those, or were you still stationed in Africa?
No, I just stayed in Africa.
Okay.
I just drove that bus back and forth.
Okay.
And they had the radio equipment there that they'd call to us, and we'd radio we'd send the airplanes up. They had the airfield in Africa. Then after they got there, and they'd go up and strafe it and do whatever, you know. And then we got on the boat and went through the Rock of Gibraltar, but I didn't get to see it. I couldn't see it. It was so far off you couldn't.
Oh, okay.
You couldn't see the land on the other side of the ship either.
Huh.
And nothing but all you can see is nothing but ocean.
Again, yeah.
And
so you're heading back to the States this time?
heading back to the States, and got 2 days from then to turn around and hit it back. He says, "What the heck's going on here?" He says, "Well, this is your experience, so we're going to use you for D-Day."
Oh no. Oh boy.
And okay, so we went into England, and we were stationed there. I can't remember where it was at, but it's south of London there.
Was it nicer to be there out of the desert? Was it or what?
Oh yeah, it's a lot. Not, it's more like here.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And the only thing is you drove on the left-hand side of the road over there, and we had all the American vehicles.
So it's kind of opposite of what you were doing.
Yeah. So I drove a Jeep over there, and I took officers here and there, you know, they wanted to go there, and they tell me, "Hey, well, can we go to off the road a little bit to another town about 25 miles off the road? So we can go through there and see the sights." Okay, so we drove on over there, you know, and drove through it, and then it's like Bath, England.
Oh wow.
We drove through there, you know, and that there, and we stay overnight, you know, there, and I was on per diem, see. They give me so much for my motel and the eats and everything, and these officers they rent a they ran a motel and for me, and I didn't have to pay for it. They paid for it, and I got my food and everything free, and I still got to pay. You know.
Oh, wonderful.
And they told me that, but I never. They'd asked me to come in, you know, and stayed overnight. And said, "You know a place where we can go get a drink?" Well, down the road a ways here. Okay, we drive on down there and get. They'd buy the drinks, you know, and sit there, and then we go back to the hotel, you know, stuff. And some of these other guys, they take these officers and they do that, you know, and they get back and they turn them in.
Oh, wow.
So the next time the officers would take him out, they'd do the same thing again, only they'd turn the driver in for drinking on driving, see. He says, "How come you got to do it?" I said, "Hell, I don't turn them in." I said, "I got to see the country." I said, "I get to see the things too." I said, "Most generally they pay for my room and eats," and I says, "I get paid for it."
Yeah.
"Oh, that's how you do it." I said, "Yeah." I said, "What the hell?" I said, "All you have to do is just keep your mouth shut." I mean, and there's a lot of these colonels and them. They always ask for me if they can get me.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because they knew that I wouldn't turn them
Had
in.
a good reputation.
And I could, if they wanted to go see some site, that I would go through it and see it too. I mean.
Yeah.
And I drove all over the southern part of England.
Wow.
And we went down to the docks, you know, in the southern part. I can't remember the name of the town there, but we went down there and two or three times, and then the last time we went down there it was just before D-Day, and they gave me a 45 to put on my waist, you know. And the officer, the colonel, he had his one on too. Then they had an MP. He sat in the back of my Jeep. He had a Tommy gun with a full round, and I had a Tommy gun on the dash, you know. And we drove on down. We drove on down the road there, and the MP pulled me over, and he says, "You're doing 40 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone." He says, "You're not supposed to be going that." He said, "Let's see your trip ticket." And I looked at the trip ticket, and it says, "The secret trip." It says, "The officer that asked for you to the assistance, you donated it to him." It says, "But you do not touch it." And he looked at it, and he seen the gun on the dash there, and seen I had a 45 on me, and the other officer had on, and the guy in the back with the Tommy gun. And, "Oh, do you want me to escort you for a while?" I said, "Yeah, as you can." I said, "For a while." I said, he got down there. He got up to about 50 mile an hour, and the officer says, "Can't we do better than that?" And I said, "Yeah." So I turned out, and I stepped on my gas, and see the mechanic, and there used to be he worked at the Indianapolis Speedway years ago, before he had it, and he souped up my Jeep. It would go 75. And so I pulled on around him, and I stepped on the gas, and I run it on up to about 70, and he's back there. He was trying to catch up, and finally give up. And got down there, and we went down and watched the drive off the barge. They wanted me to drive that, and I said, I think the guy that's going to do that I think he needs the experience too. I said, I'm just going to be looking at him. And he said, oh, yeah. We went around to the site where they're going to land at, and we could see him. The boat come in, the barge come in, They dropped it down, and Jeep drove off, and the GIs got all of there and waded inshore, and everything. And they 2 or 3 barges like that did that, and then we turned around and left. And we got back went to the eat, and this MP, he had this Tommy gun, and he looked like I was a prisoner, like that he's bringing me in a prisoner, and but I had this 45 around me, The guy says, "What the hell kind of a prisoner are you?" And the MP put that Tommy gun toward him, and he says, he doesn't talk. He can't talk. Oh, okay. And they took off. We went on through and got something to eat, and we went over and sat by ourselves and ate. And then we went up to our hotel room, and they put an MP on our door.
Wow.
And they put an MP down in the thing there.
Is this all for secrecy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that they thought I could tell what
Right.
Dave was going to do, all
Right.
this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know anything about
Yeah.
it. But then we got through there, and we turned around and headed back home, and got back, and the MP went his way, and I went back to the barracks, and I couldn't talk to any of the guys or anything. I had to sleep by myself and everything, and then the day D-Day come, my name was up on the board, top of the list, because this driver of the officer's bus, he drove it. It was a right-hand drive but it was on the left-hand side of the road, which
Right.
was normal, but he had this 41 Ford. They converted it to a bus, The driver is in his cab like he does, but the bus part was on the back of it.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And the sergeant come to me and he says, "Come on, Dad." He says, I want you to drive this bus." He says, "They say there's something wrong with it." He says, "I want you to drive it." And says, "I can listen and see what it is." And says, "I can't drive it and listen to it too." I said, "Okay." So we got in, and I took off with the bus. And he said, "I know you know how to drive this right hand," says, "because you drove it for years and that." So we drove on down the road, and about 5 miles, and turned around and come back, and there was hills like that, Some of them you had to shift down, and then shift back up again, and that. And we pulled back in. I says, "Well," he says, "I didn't hear anything, did you?" And I said, "No." So he said something about making an awful noise. And I said, "I don't know." And then he went over and opened up the door, and out come the commanding officer and the transportation officer. And the commanding officer pulled out his billfold and handed the transportation officer a $10 bill. And he came back over and I said, "What the hell was that?" He said, "Well," he said that there was something wrong with the thing there and he wanted it fixed right away. He says, and the transportation officer said there wasn't anything wrong with the bus, it was the driver. And he said, I said, "What's the hell is the matter? Didn't he double clutch it?" He said, "That's what I figured out. It would sound like it. Because the 41 Ford, if you didn't double clutch it, it sounded like the transmission is going to go out of it, you know."
But you knew to double clutch, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I figured that was why my name was on the top of the list, because I cost him. He lost that.
Okay.
He lost that deal.
What was this list that you were on on?
For the D-Day landing.
Oh, geez.
So I went in 3 days after D-Day. I got on the boat when we drove. I went down, and then the next day that night we got on the boat, and we left. Next morning we was over by the Omaha Beach.
Can you describe the site? What you saw when you got to Omaha? What it looked like?
It's a big cliff-like thing, a small rock marble thing. They had you couldn't go up it at all. I mean, they took these, what do you call them things, and shot them up there, and then they dug in the ground, you know, and then they went hand in hand, and there's little rocks, you know, there's little crevices here and there, you know, and they'd go up it and they'd stop, you know, something like that, and they had their gun, and the Germans were standing up there shooting down at them, and one of the guys said, he'd stop, you know, you get one of them crevices there, he could stop, and he'd take his gun and he'd shoot the officer, the German that was doing it there, and let a couple of guys go on up and up there, you know.
What did you see when you pulled up? What did the area look like?
Oh, it's just I don't know, a couple 100 feet tall.
Was there a lot of damage and equipment and stuff still
No,
there?
there
Or
wasn't
did they get
anything there at all, just the beach, you know, had sand up there close to about 20 feet away from the water to the rocks and stuff like that.
Okay, so they'd already cleared off all the damaged.
Yeah, there wasn't anything else there.
Oh, okay.
And then went down just a little bit, and they made a road up in where it wasn't all just marble. It was where they could up there.
What were you driving at this time?
I had a 2.5-ton GMC, and had a canvas top, and I had a little trailer on the back, one of these teardrop trailers.
Oh, okay.
With radio equipment in it.
Okay.
And I got out. My name come up, and they called my name up and go catch the elevator, go down to to get on the barge, you know. Me and two other guys, and mine was on the GMC with the trailer on it, and the other two guys are just trucks, you know, with stuff. And the first one, he drove off and he went around the shore and headed toward shore, you know. And the second one, he drove off and he killed us. He didn't check his air thing. And when he bumped down out there, that thing fell down like that and sucked in water into the thing and broke 3 pistons. And he got off. Well, when I pulled off the barge, my truck and the trailer, just as the trailer got off in the barge, I bumped into his bumper, and you know, I was in the water.
Is that right?
I was standing up in thing, and the water was up to here.
And the truck sits pretty high to begin with, doesn't it?
Yeah, and everything was down below, underneath the water. And when I bumped into, I pushed the clutch in just to slow it so it wouldn't hit fast. And I bumped in, like I stepped on the gas and I let out the clutch, and then the motor sounded like it was doing about 80 mile an hour, and she took off and it pushed him to shore. The water was about 2 or 3 inches deep, and I seen the tow truck coming out for him. So I stopped and backed up and pulled on around him like that, and I drove on over to where they had that road to go up to the top. And so I drove on up top there, and I drove on down about a block away from there, and where there's a bunch of trees, and you could see you couldn't see the ships, or like that. But there's in the big one here and a big here, and this in this
Okay.
kind of rectangle. I mean, what do you call it, bay in there or something. And that's where the ships, the barges pulled into there, and dropped off. And of course, some of the ships, they had their trucks on it. They went over to the docks. There was a dock on the south side of the thing. I was on the north side. The damn thing we had to drove off in the barge, and some of the guys, the cranes lifted them off and set them on the ground, and they just jumped in them and drove off with them, But I was just raised up my hood, and I was disconnecting the battery so I could take the waterproofing off my truck.
Okay.
And I heard this noise, and I looked up, and here comes 3 German planes.
Oh, geez.
And they had bombs on the bottom of them.
Oh, boy.
And the first one went in like that, just as he got past that bar thing there where the ships was. They was all lined up out there, and he let loose of his bomb, and then the ships opened up fire on him, and I think the bomb got maybe about 15, 20 feet from the plane when they hit it, and it blew up. And it took, of course, the force took him down too.
How far away were you from that?
Oh, I'd say about 3 blocks or so.
Wow, jeez.
And then the other 2 planes come in, and got the bomb on them before they ever got to release them. And it looked just like they shoot these 4th of July, these rockets, up, and then it explodes up there like that. That's what it did. And got up there like that. When they hit that plane, that plane just went millions of pieces, just shattered all over everything. Both of them, the last 2.
Wow.
All 3 ships went into the ocean out there.
Wow.
And I got through with my taking the waterproofing off, and I pulled on up. And it's supposed to go down about 10 miles from the places where they had this, where the Americans was stationed at for a while. And I went down there and stayed. And that night they took us out in the big field there, in farm field, He says, dig your little place and put the dirt around it like that, and then put your tent over it so you can, so in case it rains, you don't get wet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did, and I left my barracks bag in my truck. So, and it started raining to beat hell all of a sudden, and there was a couple of guys that, well, in the farmland they got ditches, along the edges, to irrigate, They pitched their tent right in the irrigation ditch.
Oh, jeez.
And all once they got that filled up with water, and started coming there, they jumped up and grabbed their tent and tried to cover themselves up with. But next morning, we loaded up and got ready to pull on out. We drove on out to, I don't know, it's 3 or 4, maybe 5 miles away from there or so. And it was right there. The artillery's on one side of the hedgerow and we was on the other side. And that's what we did the rest of the time, all the time I was in France. We was on one side of the hedgerow and artillery's on the other side.
Huh.
When the artillery would move up to 5 miles, well, we'd go along with them, in a car to find out where they's at, and then we'd come back, and next morning we'd drive on, we'd get everything loaded up and move on out. But they had to, they couldn't. The airplane, the radio and the thing there, they had to keep it going, so, and so in the morning we'd drive on down have to drive 5 miles, that's all. And
So you carried all the communications equipment? Is that what you're?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I looked at the Legion magazine, where it tells all the outfits. I looked through them things and never had our outfit listed at all.
Is that right? Huh. What outfit were you in, Ed?
The 19th Technical Air Command. That's it, see. See, the Tactical Air Command, that means up in front lines.
Were you still part of the Air Corps, or were you?
I was in the 9th Air Force, but I was in the 19th Technical Air Command, is what I was in. 9th Air Force.
Well, what would you be doing on the ground supporting artillery?
Well,
how did you get attached to that?
Well, we just pull on in and unhook the trailer from it, and then they'd say somebody come by and say, "Hey, we need some supplies. Go to the supply depot back here." And it's about 25 miles back for the supply depot, and I'd go back there and tell them. They knew when I come in there. They knew me all the time. They'd load me up with a whole bunch of supplies, and I'd drive on back up there.
Gotcha.
And we was always 5 miles close to the front lines. See, from the front lines, 5 miles back is where they have all the equipment.
Okay.
And they kept. The guys that was up, the infantry is up there 5 miles ahead of them.
Right.
But when they got so far up, everybody keep moving up.
Uh-huh.
When we got 10 miles behind, well, we'd move up to 5.
Right.
And then sometimes we'd move twice a week and sometimes once a week.
Okay.
Depending how fast they drove the Germans. Anyway, it was always on one side of the hedgerow and the artillery was on the other side. It was about, I don't know, around 10 or 15 canyons on the other side of the hedgerow. Sometimes it's noisier than hell.
Oh, I gotta imagine. I can't imagine what the noise must have been like.
And of course, see the German 88s. Now they got a 20-mile radius, so they could always reach us. Actually, they could reach us. To get us, they'd have to go shoot about 10 feet further from the artillery.
Did you ever come under attack from the 88s?
No.
No?
We never did because the artillery kept us, but
So you kept moving with the front line.
Yeah.
How far did you guys go?
We was up to. We got up to. It was going to go to Paris. I mean, what do you call it? Madagascar or something like that. The suburbs of Paris. It is.
Marseille? No, not Marseille. Yeah. I'm not sure, but
Marseilles.
Marseille's?
Yeah.
That's
It's suburbs of Denver, just like
Yeah.
I mean, Paris,
Paris.
just like Littleton and that is
Okay.
Denver, and we took.
Ed, I'm sorry to interrupt you there. I had to change tapes. We left off. You were just going into the suburbs of Paris.
Yeah, we followed the artillery in to where they was gonna set up at, and we was heading back to go back. We had 5 miles to go, and I was riding in the back of a Jeep, and the roads over there just rougher than hell. I was hanging on with my left hand underneath the seat, my right hand over here, because it was go back and forth like that, and up and down, and we went through this big truck was coming in the other way, and we was going through it, and I was hanging on this hand here, and I caught. If I wouldn't have been hanging on, we'd have got through there without any trouble at all. But my hand, it did these 3 fingers here.
Smashed your hand?
Yeah.
What? You got hit by that truck, or?
No, but the cement, it had a cement wall on the sides of the bridges.
Oh boy.
Ditch.
Huh.
And the driver said, "Boy, I hope I can get by." And he was worried about getting.
Yeah.
Had enough room between that thing, and it was because we couldn't turn out. It was getting late, and we couldn't turn on the lights because you turn on the lights, the 88s had come on.
Right.
And
Gotcha.
And we was trying to get back, and we had a couple miles to go to the camp. I mean,
How badly injured were you? What happened?
well, they took these 3, all 3. This one here was just the 3rd finger was just barely hanging there.
Oh.
And these 2 here, they went in and laced the bone back together again. It looked, when you look at the blueprint, it looked more like he's shattered like this, like that. And the bone looked about like that, or real small, And they went in and laced it back there, them 2 there, from here to here. They laced them 2 there. They made an incision here and here, and this one over here was where the impact. But they took and laced them back together again, and then this here they brought it back over here. It was just been easier because it was just about a 1/4 of an inch of skin left there. That's all. All they had to do is just take and pull it on up there and sew it in. The skin, and that had been it. Just had the stub there, but they went in there and hooked the bone in that joint up, and I could still move the joint.
Huh. Did that take you off the front line then, or?
Yeah. Then we drove. I got back to camp, and I went to the medic, and he just put some gauze over it like that, and get on the ambulance was sitting there, and the driver, he took me. We drove until midnight. We got to this doctor, and the doctor was getting ready to leave. He's had everything, practically all the stuff away. He went in and put like tongue pressures on each one of these fingers, like that, and gauze and like that, and put them to maintain it. And then he took over here. He give me a pint of blood because I've been bleeding.
Oh boy.
All the time, and he told the drivers where to go. And it didn't have any Novocaine or nothing like that.
Were you in a lot of pain?
And so I smoked a cigarette while the doctor is doing this here,
Oh,
and the bus driver, the one that drove the
the ambulance?
ambulance, he'd take it out of my mouth, and then he'd put it back in, in and out like that, and that was what I had for.
Oh, boy. That had to be painful.
Oh
Oh,
man!
boy.
Then we left there and we drove till 7:30 in the morning. We got to the hospital, and they took me over to the X-ray room, and they X-rayed it, and then they wheeled me on in over to the hospital, where you go into to get it out there, get operated on, and this nurse asked me, says, "Would you like to have a cup of coffee?" And I said, "Yeah." She's just a minute. "So you want cream and sugar?" And I said, "Yeah, just a little bit of sugar and a little bit of cream." And so she laid the X-ray on my stomach here, and she went and got a cup of coffee for me, and I picked up the X-ray like that and looked at it, and that's when I seen these here. You can see the bones coming down there, and then it was like this. Just nowhere here is hanging there, the thing. And I went, and she brought it back, and I drank my coffee, and they come out and got me, and they wheeled me on in, and they put me on the thing here, and they put me on my arm on a board like that, and they taped it down so you couldn't move it, and they put this, had a big long tube like that, and had a needle on the end of it, and a hose, and then he stuck it in there, and he said, "Well, says that's puts you to sleep. That was sodium pentothal." And he was taking the bandages off my hand here. Now I didn't want to look. I looked over there and I didn't want to see that. I didn't want to. So I looked at the top of the tent. I didn't see. I was up there and closed my eyes, and they worked on my hand. And next thing I know, I woke up and boy, my hind end was hard. It was hurting to be hell. And it was at about 7 o'clock at night, and he come in there and he started. "What are you doing?" I said, "What have you been doing?" He says, "I want to give you a shot." I said, "Oh, that's what's making it so sore." And I said, "Can't you use the other side for a change?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I can." And he turned me over the other way and gave me a shot on the other side. It was getting sore and hell over. And then, so next morning, they loaded me up in an ambulance and took me over to the airport. And they put me in the airplane and I flew on into England. And I got there and in the hospital there, and they took and re-operated on me. They went in and reset. They went in and reset the bones, and all that stuff there. And I had a cast on it. The whole hand's in the cast, Anyway, we walked to this other kid. He had he couldn't walk. He had his leg. One leg was bad. He had to use crutches, and he'd go through the chow line. He couldn't carry the plate and go with crutches both. So I pulled my out like this, and he put one plate of his on here, and the other one I carried like that, and we go over to the table and I lay mine down and take his off and set it down like that. And then he'd take and cut my meat for me because his hands was going, and both of us. I mean, I couldn't use my right hand at all, and he couldn't carry it. He couldn't walk with anything, carry anything. So we was back and forth like that, doing that there, And anyway, we'd go back and forth to the mess hall and eat every day, 3 times a day, and get something to eat. And
What would you do to entertain yourself between then? What was there to do to pass the time?
oh, they had a couple, what do you call things come there?
USO?
USOs come there, but it wasn't worth it.
How long were you in the hospital?
Oh, I was in there almost 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah. 5 anyhow, I know. Then I got all my bandages off, and everything, and got healed up. And then you go in there and she'd bend him, like that. Oh, and it hurt. And she'd straighten it back out, and then she'd put it back in the hot wax again for a while. Then she'd take him out and do that again, and it hurt me, hell. I mean, says, I know it's going to hurt, says, but if you want to use your hand, it says, you got to do that. And I said, well, I want to use it. And I said, don't mind me cussing a little bit, but he said, oh, that's all right. He says, I'm used to that. And I got through, she gave me a tennis ball to go around like this. And I run around like that with all day, with a tennis ball, squeezing it. And the thing got so bad it was beat up. She gave me a new one, and I started using it. And well, this one guy had another guy there. He had the bullet went right through here, and just didn't bother the bone or anything, but it cut all the tendons. And they went in and reattached him, and he had it like that, and then when they got all healed up, and then they told him to go out and go bend it like this, Oh no, he'd do it a little bit, and that was it. He quit. But when I left there, all he could do, he took his sling away from him, so he'd have to, and he took and put it in his pajama tops like that, around. But when I left there, he couldn't move his hand like this. He couldn't move his fingers. All he could do is, he could take it like this. That's all he could do with it. He couldn't move his elbow here at all, but he could just move his shoulder, like that.
Just because you didn't work out?
Because he didn't work them.
Oh boy.
And when they hooked them all up, then you got to, after they wanted you to start moving them so they can, so in case they break again, they could go back in and check them. And
so when you got out of the hospital, did you have pretty good use of your hand again?
Yeah,
then?
I had like that. I could move it like that.
Now, from the hospital, did you go back to your unit then, or where'd you go?
No, I stayed there in the hospital till, after Christmas. That was happening August the 19th when this happened.
Of 44?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was in the hospital till right after Christmas. We got on the boat after Christmas and spent New Year's on the boat. And we got to the United States, and they went to a place there first, and then they put us on the train, and we took the slow route to California. Took us 4 days to get to California.
Did it come by here? Was there any way for you to get off and see?
No, I went down. They went from New York on down to about someplace down in Georgia or something like that, and then across the southern part across there. And every time I think of something, a mouse or something went across the railroad tracks, they'd stop the train. And we was in a cattle car. It wasn't a boxcar or something like that. You know, the cattle car, the
Yeah,
slots
slats.
like that. I didn't have nothing over them, you know, like that. We was sitting in that thing there, and we tried to had cots on the down there. They had double deck cots in that thing, and we went across there, and it took us 4 days to get across to California.
Wow.
Sometimes we'd pull over to stop. We'd sit there for an hour before another train comes through, and then we'd go on to another. We could almost get out and walk alongside of it as fast as it goes.
Yeah. Now, why were you going to California?
I went to the hospital in California.
Ah, okay.
I went to the Palm Springs. You know,
Uh-huh.
went to the hospital there in Palm Springs, California.
Now, why did they send you to that hospital? Was that a specialty for your hand, or why? Of all
I
the
don't know. It was closer to. That's the hospital was closer to my point where I lived.
Oh, okay.
I guess, and then they give me a trip. I got to come home for a couple of days. I got on a train and come home, and
Why, was that nice to be home after all you'd been through?
yeah,
Yeah.
I got to come home. And it was 2 years. Well, let's see, it was in 42, and December the 20th, 1942 is when I got on the boat to go overseas. And when I come back to the States, on January the 20th, I was landed in New York.
Wow.
And we got to California there, and I got the hospital there, and I got to leave, a 7-day leave, and come home, you know, and then
Was it good to see your folks and your family
Yeah.
again? Yeah.
I got to see my folks and that again, and then I didn't get too much day. It took me a day to get home and a day to get back.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple of days, had about 5 days at home, 4 days, and
Was it nice to have some home cooked meals and sleeping in bed? And
yeah, and then we went. I was stationed there for a while, then at the hospital, and then they give me. We got to go to town a couple of times, and I went to town with this one guy. He says, "I want to go to town and get drunk." I said, "You do?" I said, "Well," says, "I'll go and drink with you for a while." He said, "When I get so far," and I said, "I'm going to quit." He said, "Oh, that's okay." He said, "I'll go that way." And so we went to town, and I think I was an alcoholic, but I could drink it, but I didn't need to. I was in France. I drank a quart of this distilled apple cider. It's like 180 proof alcohol.
oh, geez.
Everybody over there drank on about that every time, all the day. And we never felt. I mean, you instead of drinking water, you just drink a drink of that there. But we went to town and drank, and we were sitting there drinking, you know, and he'd order up a shot, and I'd order up a shot. I was drinking just as powerful or more powerful than what he was drinking, you know. And he said, "Boy, I gotta quit." That's what's the matter. He says, "Ain't you drunk?" He says, "You gotta quit pretty soon?" I said, "Well," I guess you're gonna have to quit pretty soon." I said, I said, I'm not drunk yet. I said, but he said, how in the hell are you? He says, I sure hate to get you to drink along with you till you get drunk. As well says, I said, if I've been for years over there overseas, I said, I drank a quart of like 180 proof alcohol every day. Holy cow. But wait, then I got, they shipped me on up to north to, almost to San Francisco, San Francisco. And I got there and I showed him, I says, what are, he says, you're a driver? I said, yeah. I showed him a driver's license and he looked at it. Hey, says, I want you to report back here at 5:30. Says, go to Best Hall and eat early and get back here at 5:30 and you take the bus to town. I said, okay. So he'd had on their bus driver.
Oh, jeez.
I had a Jeep car and a truck and practically everything is the Army had, and a bus on the top of it, you know. And then so I said, well, somebody gonna show me how to get there and that? I said, this is the first time I've been here in my life. And I said, yeah, we'll show you. I'll have the guy go, this one guy that goes town, he can tell you which way to go to get there. I said, okay. We went down to the railroad station and parked, and then we picked it up at midnight. When the train come in at midnight, well, I have to wait until the train come in, see if there's any GIs on it to go to the camp there.
Okay.
And then if there was, then you pick them up and take them on up to the camp, and plus all the guys that went to town. And yeah, I did that. And then one day there, they was going to have a what do you call this, inspection, you know. You're supposed to have your place all cleaned up and straightened up, you know, and everything. And they come in there, and here I was sleeping, laying on the bed sleeping.
Oh, jeez.
And he came up to me and says, what are you doing sleeping here? I said, well, I got to get some sleep. He said, you do? And I said, yeah. I said, I'm the bus driver. Oh, I said, yeah. You know, go back to sleep, you know. Because I hadn't get back in until around 1 o'clock.
Right,
you know,
right.
And then I had to take care of the bus and everything. I didn't get in until about 3 o'clock to go to bed, you know, and everything. So, but they didn't say any more about it. I mean, then I got another transfer on up. I was there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, you know. Then I went up to Tampa, Florida. I mean, not Tampa, Florida, but what do you call it? Tampa, Washington, is it? Is there?
Oh, Tacoma?
Tacoma, Washington. Up to Tacoma, and showed him my driver's license and that, you know, and everything. And his fine says, bring your brakes back and come down here tomorrow morning at so and so. I said, okay. And the next morning I got there and they gave me a truck. I think it was about a Chevy 1 ton, was small, a short Chevy, you know. Had benches in the back, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked me and about 4 other guys got in it, and away we took off for Spokane. I drove to Spokane, Washington there, and He said, well, I says, okay. He said, then he says, oh, says, you're going to Missoula, Montana. Says, you can go down to the hotel, a certain hotel downtown. Says, get you a room, and then tomorrow morning, he says, you'll be back out here at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. He says, well, you can go back, you go to Tacoma. So we went downtown, stayed over in the hotel, and then the next morning we went back on out to they had a bus go back and forth from the barracks, and so we left we didn't take our barracks bags or anything with us, just left them in the truck and went down, got back there, and we took off and went to Tacoma, Washington. And there they told us to find you a room any place in town and then report back. And I got a room, and this ads in the paper, and I found this one ad in the paper. And she had a room, they had a bed that folded up and a closet, like that. She had to eat out. I mean, no, just all it was just sleeping, And I stayed there for a while, and then we took. And all I did was drove around town, picked up the guys, took them on out to the airport every morning, and then at night I'd bring them back in. And during the daytime, if I needed to have the truck serviced, I took it on over. I drove it on out to well, they had a camp outside there. Well, it's about 3 or 4 miles out of town, and I'd drive it on out there, and they'd service it and fill it with gas and stuff like that, And then the sergeant, he says, well, instead of doing that there, says, give me the keys, and says, I'll drive it, and says, I'll pick you up, and says, you just go on out there and ride out there, and you can sit there and play cards or do what you want, until night. Then he'd pick us up and bring us back to town. I think he was using it for something else.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. So was Tacoma your last assignment before you got discharged, or where'd you go?
I was out there for, well, a couple of times. One time, one of the observers, he didn't feel so good. He didn't think he could go up flying. So I told the sergeant, I said, I'll go up with him. He said, okay. He said, so I went up with him, and all you have to do is look to see for balloons, The Japanese are sending balloons.
Oh, right, yeah, okay.
Bombs,
yeah.
And you look to see if you can see it, and then he'd fly, and we float around, and then we stopped and got something to eat, and flew around until night, and come back in, and then I come on in and went back to the barracks. Then they give me I got a 10-day furlough to go home. Well, it was just before the 4th of July. My wife she come on up to there. She took the train on up there, and
well, hold on. We need to back up then. You were married by this time?
Yeah.
Talk about that. We skipped all over that then.
I forgot about that. Yeah. That was right after I got back to the States. When I was in a hospital out in
California.
In California, I come home and I met her, and next time I got a week vacation, I come home and we went up to Laramie and got married. And,
She was a local girl, local Fort.
yeah.
Oh.
And then I went back to camp, and she stayed here, and I was up in Tacoma. Well, she turned and got on the train and come on up to Tacoma.
Now you were saying
to what do you call it, in Missoula, Montana, and the place I was staying at there in that house. I told her, well, my wife is coming out. She's gonna. His wife says, I'll tell you. He says, we'll put you in the garage out there. He says, there's a room out there. He says, you can. It's got a stove out there too. You can. It's a little apartment. Had a bathroom and everything, and it was a garage, and they converted it into a room. So it had a bed in there and a table and stove and everything like that, you know. So we went in there and moved in there and she stayed. Well, I stayed there in the place here. I don't know, maybe she went walking around in town a little bit or something through the daytime.
Well, you were saying, I want to interrupt here a second. When we were talking before the interview, you were saying when you got married, everybody told you that marriage wasn't going to last, right?
Yeah.
And
they told me it wasn't going to last because I met her in January, about the. No, I guess it was February. I met her in February there, the 1st of February, and we got married in March.
were they right? How long did that marriage last?
Well, it only lasted 59 years, and it was, well, we had 4 months from being to 60. And I took her to the. She had a thyroid up here that was bothering her, and she couldn't eat anything. All she could drink, liquid she could have, but she'd take anything else, well, she'd throw it back up. So we took her out to the hospital, and it was on a Friday, and they said, well, we can't do it, we gotta wait until Monday for the x-ray, so we could x-ray it. And so, and mailman just come. So the Saturday, well, all the family went out to visit her out there, and they put her in that, what do you call that? Well, it used to be a rest home right there just north of the hospital. And they got nurses and that in there, and they put her in there until the Monday, and then they're going to move her back into the main hospital and operate on her. And so we went out there Saturday and visited with her and everything. And she said, well, there ain't no TV in this room. And I said, well, says, I'll bring that out of the bedroom. I says, out here, and says, it's remote control. And I said, you can use it. And I said, I'll bring it out tomorrow morning. He says, okay. So the son and I went by. He brought me back home, you know. And next morning, I was just getting ready to go in there to disconnect it. The telephone rang, and I come over to answer it. And it was my son. He says, Mom died this morning. I said, did? He said, yeah. I said, they just called me. Said this nurse took her, got her up and dressed her and put her in a wheelchair and give her some ice cream to eat. And the other nurse come in and said, wanted to talk to her a minute. So they stepped outside of the room, and They was out there just listening a minute, and they heard a noise, and they went back in, and she was laying on the floor.
I'll be darned.
Dead.
Huh.
They couldn't revive her.
Huh. Wow.
But that's what happens to them. I mean,
Yeah. How many children do you and your wife have?
two
Two
boys.
Boys. Any grandchildren? Great grandchildren?
Well, I got, let's see, wait a minute. One granddaughter's got 3 children, and the other's got 3. So they each got 3, got 6 great-grandchildren.
That's great. And 2 grandchildren?
2 grandchildren. I had 2 sons, and my oldest son had 2 daughters. The youngest one didn't have any kids. He was in the Navy all the time.
Uh-huh.
He got himself fixed, so he couldn't have any kids.
Yeah.
Because his wife, she couldn't have any kids. She needed a lung transplant.
Oh boy.
And they was going to do a lung transplant, but they didn't get around to it quick enough.
Hmm. So as we were talking after the war, then you came back and went to work for Black Glass and worked there for 40 years?
Yeah.
And it sounds like pretty much you can drive around anywhere here in Fort Collins and you probably have your hand in the glass work, huh?
There's an awful lot of it here, and then plus I did leaded glass for a lot of churches around here, and side lights alongside the doors, and other windows leaded glass, and then I did a couple of churches out of town.
Yeah.
One up in Wyoming, one in Longmont, and plus I repatched up a bunch of lead glass, re-leaded them.
Yeah.
Just about a jack of all trades.
Sounds like it, yeah. Well, what I find kind of interesting is you were trained as a mechanic in the Army Air Corps, but never put your skills to use, did you?
No.
Yeah.
I did for about 2 weeks or so. When I was in Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
When that guy kept saying about he kept redlining my airplane.
Okay, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
He said first the thing went and do it, and I fixed it there. Then he went out and he broke the thing on the wingtip, you know.
Uh-huh.
He hit another plane in the wingtip. He said the brakes wouldn't hold, so that's why. That's when the officer took me out there, and
Right.
I thought, holy cow! Hope the only thing I could have done is to shut the motor, shut it way down, and slam on the brakes.
Yeah.
But the brakes was holding that. You just stand there, just quivering like that, you know.
So, as far as your injury, would you have been awarded the Purple Heart for something like that?
No, I didn't get one.
No.
Because they thought it was done by something that I tried to do it or something.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
I think that's what it was.
Okay. But you said you were awarded 10% disability for that?
Yeah, I got. They changed it to 30%
30?
disability.
Does it bother you to this day? Does it give you any troubles, or?
No, it doesn't. When the weather changes, it stiffens up a little.
Yeah, yeah.
I've kind of get used to it after all these years.
Oh, jeez.
60-some years.
Right, right. Well, Ed, I'll start to wind down this interview. One question I always like to ask: how do you think your time in the service during the war years, did that affect your life at all? Play a role in your life? Change your life at all? Or was it just simply a chapter in your life that you went through? Do you think?
I just went to it. I mean, I went to see about just for the float. I mean, because I got hammer toes, and I didn't, that's why they said they wouldn't take me.
Right, yeah.
But but I had this when they had the big shoes is what was better. I mean,
Yeah.
after I put them the other shoes on, it doesn't bother me so much.
Yeah. Well, how was it here? Like I said, here's a country boy from Colorado. You get in the service, you went all over the country. You went to Africa, to Europe. That must have been really something. Seeing the
Wow.
pyramids, that must have been really something for a
I
country
already
boy.
got to see a lot of country.
Yeah, that must have been something to, because during that time, I mean, your generation really didn't travel too far away from home growing
Yeah,
up, so it must have
yeah.
been just something to see.
Yeah, when I left New York, it was in December the 20th. It was 19th, and we drove down to Virginia. I mean, rode train down to Virginia. It was cold then. It was about around 30, 40 degrees, you know, like that, and or more. And we got on the boat, pulled on out, way out there, and then we got closer down to Rio de Janeiro. Then it was summertime. I mean,
Yeah.
it went back up to the 80, 90, 100 degrees, you know. And then he went down around Cape Horn, and it was back to cold. I mean, the frost, the ice, and everything along. Then we come back up and hit the
Hit the hot
heat
desert.
wave again.
Yeah, that's something else.
But Cairo is right close to the, what do you call it? What do you call it? The line where the heat is.
Oh, the equator?
Equator. That's right. It's just north of the equator
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's hot.
Wow.
It gets up in the wintertime. It gets down to about 100.
Gets down to 100.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then in the summertime it's up to way up above that.
I'll be darned. Well, Ed, I want to thank you for sitting here to tell your story today, but more importantly, I want to thank you for your service to our country.